Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Danielle, aka Stitcherista, here on YouTube, and today is a diamond paint with me while I continue working on Treasure Studios Art Cherry Blossom by Lizzie Falcon. I know it's been a while since I've diamond painted, and yesterday after I got done, video, house stuff, my dentist appointment, prepping for today's job, all that stuff, I said, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to diamond paint. And I actually watched the most bizarre movie and ended, and I was like, what? The movie was called Shattered, and it's on Amazon Prime. It was, this woman was married, and the way I'm amazed that I could follow the movie because I was diamond painting during it, obviously, but it flipped back between past, present, and yeah, it was like she was pregnant, and you get the sense that something happened to her baby. And when you find out what, oh my God, I was like, oh my God. But her husband gets a therapist for her to come to the house, and that's bizarre. And then the ending, I was like, what? I almost went on Google and tried to look up the explanation of the movie. Have you ever done that? I've done that plenty of times, but I was like, okay, I don't care that much. So you guys will not see in this video, but I actually did diamond paint past this video. I diamond painted after Bill went to bed because I was determined to finish this row, and I did. If you follow me on Instagram, I finished the row, and I have one more row to do, and that is it. And I just can't believe it. I feel like I've been working on this diamond painting for a very, very long time. And someone on Instagram asked me, when did you start it? I don't know. I guess I would have to go back and look at some videos, but since I had to delete so many of my videos on my channel, that's probably not even there when I started it. I don't remember when I started this. I don't have anything written down. My cross-stitch journal that I bought, because I showed that in my vlog clip yesterday, which you guys will see on Saturday. I'm going to start writing diamond painting in there too, I think, because then I'll have it all detailed. But yeah, I have no idea. So it's going to be time to buy a frame at some point. I was going to wait until I was finished it completely. And yeah, I'm trying to think, what color frame do I get? Because I've had that little easel stand thing that I bought from Wayfair since the springtime, I think. I'm going to put the diamond painting there. That's going to be a rotation of diamond paintings as I finish them, because next I'm going to do Maleficent by Lizzie Falcon, Treasure Studios Art. And that one's not that big either, but I have no timetable because I'm fairly slow, because I don't diamond paint every day. And I don't do it have a huge chunk of time, right? I'm working on my crafts. When I work, I am working on my crafts an hour a day max in the evening. Now, next week, I am probably only going to be working one day. Wednesday, October 20th, we have the arbitration. But my boss is on vacation that week. She's actually going to be taking down the arbitration in Oregon when she's on vacation, because they added that day because we had so much time canceled. We weren't supposed to have it at all next week. But so I will have some time next week, and I hope to finish Cherry Blossom next week for sure. That's my goal anyway. And if I can get my ass up and, get house stuff done early and all that, because I do have a doctor appointment, but I only have one next week. So yeah. So today is actually the 1-year anniversary of my grandfather's passing. I can't believe it's been a year since he's been gone. My mom did a Facebook post that made me cry. Yeah, I can't believe it's been a year since he's been gone. So he was a really good grandfather. He did a lot for us as kids. Did a lot for us as even adults, helped us with our cars, and did our oil changes every year, and until he couldn't anymore. But yeah, he was always there. He was always there when you needed him, for sure. Um, so today will be a tough day for my mother, for sure. Um, and then tomorrow is my stepfather's birthday. Next week is mom's birthday. Um, I'm probably, because I am going to be off next Tuesday, I will probably try to get with her and go over there on Tuesday. Or even this Saturday. So my sister calls me yesterday. Now, my sister hardly ever calls me. If anything, she'll send me, we send like cat pictures, dog pictures back and forth on Instagram. But she called me yesterday, and I'm like, so automatically I start to think something's wrong because, like I said, she never calls me. But she wanted to call me and tell me that Burger King, which is a fast food restaurant in our area, is coming out with ghost pepper chicken nuggets. If you don't know what ghost pepper is, it's really hot pepper. And she wanted to know if we could do a video where we taste test it. And we haven't done a video in an extremely long time. So I told her, now, she has a cold right now. I said, well, if you're better by the weekend, we can do it Saturday or Sunday. I passed Burger King on the way to my mom's house, so I can just stop and get them. Well, she actually got the nuggets last night. My stepfather took her, they were out somewhere, and he stopped at Burger King for her because yesterday was the first day that they had them available. And she called me and said, they're spicy, but it's not so spicy like you can't eat them. You know what I mean? And I can't imagine they would have made them like that because nobody would buy them. So she was like, we need to get some and see how many we can eat before our mouth is on fire. I'm like, okay, yeah, we can do that. So I'll be going over my mother's at some point this weekend, and probably. But, in schools now, when you have like one symptom of COVID, so because Charlize has a cold, they did a rapid test on her at the school and it's negative. But she has to miss school today, and my mom has to take her to the doctor to get a COVID test. So that's happening today. And my mom's like, I pray to God it's negative because Charlize has like a bunch of tests on Wednesday, apparently. But she's actually doing really well in school now. She has all B's and 1A, I think. So that's fantastic for her because she had E's last semester. Yeah! E's! No. But yeah, Charlize is a junior, so before we know it, she's going to be out of high school. October 18th, which is next Monday, my mom said that my mom's taking her to get her learner's permit. Charlize turned 16 in February, but they haven't, allowed her to get her license yet, so that should be interesting. Yeah, and she'll probably pass that test. It's the driving portion that, takes a bit. But I was remiss yesterday. I forgot to mention someone, Kathy, aka Kit Kat, bought me 5 coffees. So very appreciative. Thank you so very much. And she says, Danielle, thank you for all the videos, the tutorials, and the gadgets you show to improve our crafts. It's truly appreciated. Sending love and healing thoughts to you, Kathy. Kathy, thank you so much because, when you buy me a coffee, it goes into my PayPal account, and I tend to leave it in there. Well, yesterday, and I wasn't going to buy this, but I decided to. I went and bought the new, and I'm going to try to find it so I can tell you the exact, I think it's called Evergreen. Treasure Studios Art has come out with, yes, it is called Evergreen. Treasure Studios Art has come out with Christmas diamond paintings. And one of them, well, there's a couple by Lizzie Falcon. But I love her rendition of the woman, like Cherry Blossom and Milkshake and stuff like that. So she has one that's called Evergreen, and the woman's hair looks like a Christmas tree. It's all green. It has Christmas lights and a star in it. And it's like the telltale face and all that. And so I went to the site and bought it. Now, I decided I get round diamonds, and what's nice is they offer it in round or square. And I decided to get the smallest size, which is 45 by 60. And, usually I get the middle size. But I was like, you know what? Cherry Blossom was the smallest size. I'm fine with the rendition of that. I'm afraid if I start buying these really, really big diamond paintings, 45 by 60 is not small. It's just going to take me forever to complete any of these. So I really love this one. It's really, really pretty. So I will link it in the description box below so you can go take a peek at it. And I don't know, currently their production time is 2 to 3 weeks. Well, that was August 1st update. So I don't know how long it'll take me to get it. Not in any kind of hurry. But I did have points. So I was able to get $15 off my order. So, and then with the coffees, I only wound up paying myself, because shipping was like $9.50. I only wound up paying like $40 for it, which, cool. I was good with that. Because the smallest size kit was $52.50. So by the time you take away the $15, then you add back $9.50 for shipping. You know what I mean? Yeah. So all of that happened. And yeah, so today my job starts at 10 o'clock. And when I'm recording this voiceover, it's about 10 of 9. So as soon as I'm done this, got to get in the shower, get ready, all that good stuff. Oh, I am reading a pretty good book. So let me tell you about that. Let me go find it. Yes, if you do not know, I pre-record the stitching or diamond painting part. And then I do the voiceover the next day, usually the next morning. Okay, so the book I am reading is called I Don't Forgive You by Aggie Bloom Thompson. It is linked in the description box. So here is the premise. An accomplished photographer and the devoted mom of an adorable little boy, Allie Ross has just moved to an upscale DC suburb, which I find hilarious that they live in like Bethesda. They talk about Bethesda, Montgomery County. That's in my state. It's the kind of place where parenting feels like a competitive sport, and Allie is desperate to make a good first impression. Then she is framed for murder. It all starts at a neighborhood party when a local dad corners Allie and calls her by an old forgotten nickname from her dark past, and the next day he is found dead. Soon the police are knocking at her door, grilling her about a supposed Tinder relationship with the man and pulling up text messages between them. She learns quickly that she's been hacked and someone is impersonating her online. Her reputation, socially and professionally, is at stake. Even her husband starts to doubt her. As the killer closes in, Allie must reach back into a past she vowed to forget in order to learn the shocking truth of who is destroying her life. I'm a third of the way through the book. It's very good. And she feels like she's losing her mind because people are posting pictures of her on Tinder. They made a profile. It's frightening what people can do in your name. And it's not you. So yeah, it's very suspenseful. I highly recommend if you like those kind of books. Okay, so today's story is about Jeffrey McDonald. So, let me see. Wow, this story is so long. What the hell? Am I going to have time to do this one? This story is so insanely long. I'm going to try. Okay. Jeffrey R. McDonald was a medical doctor and a Green Beret with a great future in front of him and with seemingly no reason to do what he was accused of doing, which to many is the most inexcusable of all crimes. He was accused, charged, and eventually convicted of murdering his pregnant wife and their 2 daughters at their home on February 17th, 1970. So it was a horrendously brutal crime in which Jeffrey's wife Colette and their 2 daughters, Kimberly and Kristen, had been beaten and stabbed to death. It was not a quick, painless death for them. They suffered through a prolonged attack before finally succumbing to their injuries. The violence was the most horrific that many of the cops on the scene had ever witnessed, and to make matters worse, the details at the crime scene were even more frightening. The word pig was written in blood on the headboard of the bed of one of the dead children, eerily echoing the Charles Manson family murders months earlier in Los Angeles. It was enough to put the state of North Carolina, where the murders happened, and eventually the entire U.S. on edge. Were hippies following the lead of the Manson family by murdering random middle-class families across the country? And it was a legitimate question that many were asking. It certainly looked creepy and frightening, too eerie and frightening for the investigators. The fact that some of the details of the murders matched those of the Manson family murders looked like a bit more than a coincidence. McDonald even described the attack to investigators as similar to that of a murderous hippie Manson-esque group. And the investigators were immediately skeptical of that story. The fact that McDonald had only suffered minor injuries in the alleged attack merely raised the investigators' suspicions further. And it would. I mean, that's happened in a bunch of stories, right? Do you guys ever see the movie The Devil's Advocate with Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino? Keanu Reeves is defending a guy that is accused of killing his wife. And I won't say anymore, but very good movie. Still, he was a respectable member of the community, so the investigators looked at every lead, which eventually led them back to McDonald, who they charged with the murders. What followed was a legal odyssey that continues into the present, the most recent appeal being in 2014, with many believing that McDonald was definitely a dad who killed, while others think he was railroaded. Okay, so here is the backstory. Jeffrey Robert McDonald was born on October 12, 1943 in New York City to a working-class family. It was definitely a different country at that time, where people had different opportunities and different values. The idea that if you worked hard, you could get ahead in life was shared by the vast majority of Americans and was for the most part true. Not long after Jeffrey was born, his father followed that version of the American dream by moving the family to Long Island, where they didn't necessarily have a lot of money, but where his father made do to give them a solid middle-class lifestyle in the 1950s. And by every metric, Jeffrey was a high achiever in high school. His grades were good, he excelled in athletics, and he was voted class president. And he was also a blossoming ladies' man. You can imagine, right? So McDonald's tall, athletic frame, sharp blue eyes, and charisma made him very popular with the girls. It was this popularity that would get McDonald into trouble later in life when he was charged with killing his family, but in the late 1950s and early 60s, it was all harmless fun. For Jeffrey McDonald, girls came and girls went, but he was a young man on a mission. He had some pretty big goals in his life, and as a goal-oriented person, nothing or no one would get in his way. Some say that this extreme, ambitious attitude of taking no prisoners played a role in his family's massacre in 1970, but in the early 60s, it proved to be the linchpin of his success in life. After graduating high school in 1962, McDonald went on to study at the Ivy League school, Princeton University. He had his whole life in front of him and was bound to be a success, but in the early 60s, every successful guy had to have an attractive woman at his side, did they? Okay. So McDonald met his future wife, and many would say murder victim, Colette Stevenson, while they were attending the same high school. When McDonald moved to New Jersey to attend Princeton on a scholarship, he studied hard, but he also partied hard. McDonald continued to build on his reputation as a ladies' man, but at the same time, he kept in contact with Colette this whole time. Okay. Colette was attending college in upstate New York, but McDonald made trips up there to see her whenever he could. And needless to say, it was a whirlwind romance. The young couple threw caution to the wind, and in 1963, Colette became pregnant with their first child. Their first daughter, Kimberly Catherine, was born in 1964, which threw the dynamics of the young couple's relationship onto a different level, because at that time, abortion was illegal, so it was not an option. And neither was adoption considered as an option, so McDonald decided to make Colette an honest woman by asking her to marry him. So not the ideal situation, of course, because that would change the whole course of their life, obviously. So she readily accepted, and the couple married in September 1963, months before Kimberly was born in April. And to Colette's stepfather and mother, McDonald seemed like the perfect guy for Colette. And her stepfather is later quoted as saying he was a nice, presentable young man, good potential for the future, so they saw nothing wrong with them getting married. And by all accounts, the couple was happy. After McDonald graduated from Princeton, they moved to Chicago, where he went to medical school at Northwestern. The couple had to save all their pennies and occasionally relied on some money from their family, but he did well in his courses, and they welcomed another daughter, Kristen Jean, to their family in 1967. After graduating from medical school, McDonald then made what some consider the strange choice of joining the Army. Why would he do that after all of that schooling? Wouldn't you want to rest, right? In 1969, the Vietnam War was at its peak, so someone who knew the McDonalds thought it was strange that he wanted to enter the Army, and he did good. He did good, and he thought it would look good on his resume, and it didn't hurt that he was a medical doctor, and those skills at that time were very desirable in the Army. So for the McDonald family, this next phase in their lives, he was getting a posting in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and it was supposed to be their happiest time in their life. They were still young, and the job allowed him plenty of time to spend with his wife and daughters. But it also afforded McDonald time to potentially get into trouble. So he still continued to be a ladies' man and was involved in at least 2 affairs. And he made a bunch of enemies on base because of that. And by 1970, the U.S. was consumed with a drastically rising crime rate. And according to several witnesses, McDonald had a couple of run-ins with drug addicts attempting to get prescriptions for painkillers and opioids. And when he refused to write the prescriptions, he was threatened. And so, okay, that probably is, he's going to say, that's who killed my wife and daughters, right? So Colette, Kimberly, and Kristen were all brutally beaten and stabbed that night, February 16th, 17th, 1970. And McDonald suffered several superficial stab wounds and one serious stab wound that punctured his lung. Most believe McDonald committed the horrendous act, while he argues a drug-crazed hippie cult did it. So, on February 17, 1970, at 3:42 a.m., Fort Bragg emergency dispatchers received a call about a stabbing at 544 Castle Drive. When they arrived, they were horrified at what they found. And according to Jeffrey, it began for him when he was awoken from deep sleep to the cries of his wife saying, "Jeff, Jeff, help, why are they doing this to me?" So Jeff says he was sleeping on the couch in the living room because Kristen had wet his side of the bed in the master bedroom earlier that evening. He says the next thing he knew, he was fighting off 2 young white males and a young black male, with a young white woman wearing a large brimmed hat typical of hippies of the time, instigating the attacking. McDonald says he was struck with a wooden club and stabbed with an ice pick, but he was able to fend off the worst of the stabs. And they still did a number on him, though, and knocked him unconscious. And when he regained consciousness, he checked his wounds and tried to revive his family members before calling the police. And when the Army Central Investigation Division interviewed McDonald and looked at the forensic evidence, they came to an entirely different conclusion, though. They believe that McDonald had an argument with his wife that night, probably over his affairs, and after she hit him on his forehead, he snapped and beat her with a piece of wood from their bedroom closet. One of the daughters heard the commotion, enters the room, and she was beaten to death before McDonald brought her body back to her own room. And then to finish off, so there were no witnesses, he also killed the other daughter. And although the massacre took place before DNA profiling was, a reality, each of the McDonald family members had a different blood type, so reconstruction could be done of their movements. Oh my God. And it was immediately clear once they did this that there was inconsistencies with McDonald's story. So for one thing, there were few signs of struggle in their house. And along those lines, there were the injuries to Jeff. Most were superficial, and the one serious injury he did sustain was too good, almost as if he planned it that way. And the average person probably couldn't have given themselves a wound like that without possibly killing themselves. But remember, Jeff had a medical degree, right? And then there was the layout of the home and the way the victims were found. So they actually lived in an apartment with another family living on the floor above them. And neither neighbors, upstairs neighbors or any of the neighbors, heard or saw anything unusual. And if there were intruders, right, they had to be like stealth ninjas because you would have heard that. I've lived in a house that was converted into apartments. You fucking heard everything. So then there was the fact that despite apparently being attacked last, McDonald was asleep in the living room, which the killers would have had to go through to kill the other family members. So that's highly unlikely. Finally, there was the fact that Kimberly's blood type was found in the master bedroom, but her body was found in her bedroom, implying that she was killed in the master bedroom, then moved to her bedroom. And a drug-crazed hippie cult wouldn't have done, well, they wouldn't be moving these bodies. They wouldn't have been moving them. And there was plenty of other circumstantial evidence pointing at Jeffrey McDonald. No other blood types or fingerprints were found in the house, and both murder weapons were discovered by police on the back porch. And, you know, saying that it was like Charles Manson, people who followed this case thought that that sounded a little too neat, right? And there was a magazine article about the Manson trial found in the living room, leading investigators to believe that was where he got the idea to blame it all on a cult. And the evidence was too much for the army, and they discharged him. And now there is a trial happening, and he is being charged with murder. And there was so much evidence against him and of the crime. And when the hearing began, Jesus Christ, when the hearing began, it was revealed that 26-year-old Colette was pregnant and had been stabbed more than 35 times and beaten severely on the face. Kimberly and Kristen also stabbed and beaten. And Kristen had defensive wounds, which that's horrible. I mean, a child. So the case looked tight against Jeff, and his defense attorney claimed that a local hippie named Helena Stockley had later bragged about the murders. And it was just this case. I'm trying to like short circuit it a little bit because I only have a couple minutes for my video is going to be done. Remember, he also had threats because he wouldn't prescribe these drug addicts this medication. I'm not going to be able to finish this. I'm going to try real quick. So the charges against him were dropped on October 13th, 1970. Okay? But in many ways, the case was just getting started. So he had an honorable discharge from the Army, and he eventually moved to California to practice medicine and resume his playboy lifestyle. He even appeared on the Dick Cavett show in December of 1970 to talk about the case. And he came off as anything but sympathetic, though. Less than a year after the murders, he seemed to be less of a grieving father and husband and more of an arrogant jerk. And Colette's family watched the interview and they were not impressed. And so it was at that point that Colette's family changed their tune and began pressing federal prosecutors to charge him with murder. So, wait a minute, he wasn't charged with murder initially? See, I'm trying to skip over a little bit of it. Oh, it says, since he was never acquitted of murder, he was charged but had the charges dropped. He could be charged at any time. Okay, that makes sense. So Jeff built a new life in California with a new girlfriend, but the feds were building a case against him and brought him to trial on July 16th, 1979 on 3 counts of murder. And Helena Stockley, so the hippie that originally was like the person that did it, actually testified in person. And she didn't help his case. It was a big loss for the defense. So McDonald's lawyers were hoping she would point the finger at some of her drug addict friends, but instead she just mumbled and stuttered and wasn't a good witness up on the stand. And McDonald also took the stand in his own defense. Criminal defense attorneys usually advise against their clients taking the stand, but more than likely out of arrogance and possibly a sense of entitlement, he thought he could persuade the jury with his charisma. The prosecution was able to expose the inconsistencies in his story, and the jury returned a verdict of guilty on August 29th, 1979. And he appealed his conviction, of course, and he was released on bail about a year later pending his appeal. After about a year and a half of freedom, though, he was returned to prison in March 1982, where he still remains. But, and you guys are, I'm going to have to figure out something to put because this is going past what I recorded. He's continued to fight his case. And Helena Stockley died of cirrhosis of the liver at the young age of 30 in 1983. And so DNA, right? McDonald did successfully have DNA taken from underneath Colette's fingernails, but it was determined to be his. And the final bit of evidence was the proof for most that final bit of evidence was the proof for most people that Jeffrey did do it, right? Because she probably scratched him, I'm guessing. And he has put up a good front all these years, even as he is now a senior citizen living out his final years in federal prison. And he keeps telling people, I'm going to walk out of prison a vindicated and free man. I'm not going to walk out any other way. And this case was, a true crime book was written in 1983 called Fatal Vision. And it was even turned into a TV miniseries in 1984. I don't remember watching that though. And Jeff later sued the guy that wrote the book, arguing that he was tricked into talking to the author, but the importance of the book was not so much in the rehashing of the evidence or the court testimony. So the question that the book brought about was, why would he suddenly massacre his entire family? And that was my main question. Why? Why did he do it? So the author of this book argued that Jeff was every bit the arrogant narcissist that the courts portrayed him as, and what caused him to kill was a combination of narcissism, amphetamine use, and a lack of sleep. God, it's just such a bizarre thing that the evidence clearly points towards Jeff as being a dad who killed, but there will probably always be those who believe the charismatic guy, that his claims of innocence and that there's little chance that he'll make a deathbed confession. If he hasn't already confessed, he's not going to now. I can't imagine he will. So had you guys read the book or seen the miniseries? Bizarre. Like, I feel like, did the wife find out? Like I said, they argued about his affairs and she had finally had it. And he just snapped. And then he had to kill the two daughters because they witnessed it. I just can't. I fucking can't. Okay, guys, I'm going to end this here. Obviously, the story is over. I hope you all have a fantastic Tuesday. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.